Hey, this is Glover Teixeira, UFC light heavyweight champion.
Hi, I'm Robbie Lawler.
What's up, fight family? This is your favorite MMA coach, Thiago Alves, the Pitbull.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Pedro Moyes.
This is Mike Brown.
Guys, I am Oleksiejczuk. And welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And this is We Want Picks.
And you're watching We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks. Hi everybody from American Top Picks.
My name's Angelo and welcome to We Want Picks. And this is quick picks. So I'm going to walk through the entire UFC 272 Covington versus Masvidal fight card. I'm going to give you my picks and I'm going to give you my bets, and I'm going to try to do it in 20 minutes or less, but that might be a difficult task because this is a stacked fight card. So before I jump in, we are doing a giveaway, and if you want $50 free, go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our 5 betting partners, make a deposit, let me know when you do, and we're giving away $50. We will give you $50 for every single partner that you sign up with and make a deposit. That's at wewantpicks.com/bets. And this is brought to you by BETU Play to Earn. BETU Play to Earn is the world's first online sports and esports betting game. Check it out now at betuearn.com. That's bet, the letter U, earn.com. And opening up the UFC 272 Covington versus Masvidal fight card, we have short notice Ludovít Klein taking on Devonte Smith. Ludovít Klein is stepping up on short notice here after Eric Gonzalez dropped out. Devonte Smith is a very good striker. He's got great power, solid head movement, solid distance control. He picks his shots well, which at times makes it look like he's gun shy, but he is not. It's less about not engaging and more about picking the right shots. As it sits now, Devonte Smith has an 80% takedown defense. Granted, he hasn't fought any wrestle-heavy guys, but he did have an incredible reversal against Justin James, and he stopped one of Jamie Mullarkey's takedowns in that fight. Ludovít Klein is a phenomenal striker. He's smooth, fast, accurate, and he's big for the weight class. He's missed weight in the past, but hopefully that is under control. He has fantastic kicks, and that was obvious when he was riding a 3-fight head kick knockout streak in 2020. I know I just mentioned how great his striking is, but he was losing some striking exchanges against Mike Trizano. So then he went to his wrestling, which was surprisingly effective. He went 4 for 7 against Mike Trizano in the wrestling department. And this should be a fun fight. We have 2 strike-first guys who are willing to mix it up on their feet. Both of them are talented strikers who we have seen lean on grappling in the past. My biggest concern here is actually Ludovít's weight. So this fight is at 155 pounds instead of 145 where he normally fights, but he's had weight issues in the past with a full camp, so I don't know what short notice looks like for him, even with the extra allowance. I think Ludovít is the better, more technical striker, but I think Devonte's power, his timing, I think that should be enough for him to get the win. If Ludovít starts to fall behind and leans on his wrestling like he did against Trizano, I think he gets exhausted and he ends up getting knocked out. So I'm going to go with Devonte Smith here, but Ludovít is a high-level striker, and if he is in shape, he might be able to use that superior technique to get it done. But as it sits right now, Devonte Smith is the pick. And that moves us to Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Brian Kelleher. Umar Nurmagomedov is exactly the type of fighter you would expect him to be with that last name. He only has 1 fight in the UFC, but his statistics from that fight are insane. He had 5 takedowns in less than 2 full rounds, and it was essentially complete domination. His striking is okay, but his wrestling is absolutely fantastic. He uses kicks really well to stay out of range, and then he comes charging in with his wrestling, and he looks for takedowns from there. If he misses the first, he will absolutely transition to a second, a third, etc. He has amazing chain wrestling. Brian Kelleher has a ton of experience, and he's a great measuring stick for prospects, which is what the UFC is looking to do here. He is incredibly well-rounded with clean boxing, decent power, very good grappling, and a great pace. He's very fun to watch and always looks for a finish. This will be his second fight back at 135 because at 145, he just did not have the same success with his bully come forward style. that he did at 135. So this should be a good look for him, but this is a really tough matchup. The betting line has had dramatic movement since it opened, with Umar becoming a bigger and bigger favorite every single day, and I'm here for it. Umar's nonstop wrestling and constant pressure will absolutely get the job done. He can be hittable at times because he does have a tendency to throw those range kicks like lazily. He'll just toss him out there and not really set him up with anything. But Brian Kelleher doesn't really have that one punch KO power. So even if he does catch Umar sleeping on a few kicks, I don't think it makes much of a difference. Umar is the clear pick for me here, and I will parlay him for sure. He's absolutely a parlay piece when you're looking to build a successful slate. Then we have Negumereanu taking on Nzechukwu. Again, two solid strikers going at it here. Negumereanu has had a successful run after a 2-year layoff. Up until and since his comeback fight, he has had a 100% finish rate, and his only loss was a decision. He's a striker who is incredibly durable. He throws everything crazy with bad intentions, pressures forward, and throws mostly looping shots and just stands right in front of you. He relies on his chin and his power. He does have a backup plan if he's on the wrong side of some exchanges, which are slam style and muscle takedowns. They're not clean, but he's so tough and strong that he can force them and really make something happen there. He showed incredible heart in his decision win against Kammer and his power in his KO against Villanueva. Nzechukwu is the comeback kid. We've seen him on more than one occasion, like against Ulberg, like against Marquez, where he was well on his way to losing to a decision before he finally landed that one big punch to turn the tables. He is very long. He has a ton of power. He's got solid takedown defense at 80% and is never out of a fight, as we just mentioned. He can be gun shy at times, which is how he ends up falling so far behind. Kennedy is the favorite here, and I'm honestly surprised. Like, yes, he has a couple of solid wins in the UFC, but again, he was losing those fights handily. Ulberg was dominating the striking. Marquez was dominating the grappling. And since his comeback, Negumereanu has proven to be a fantastic striker with a solid chin and takedowns if he needs them. I like Nick to win here. I grabbed a money line bet on him. I put a full unit on that. I'm surprised that Nzechukwu is the favorite. We've seen him lose everywhere. We've seen him lose on the ground. We've seen him losing on his feet. So I like Negumereanu to get this done. Then we have Jalin Turner taking on Jamie Mullarkey. Jalin Turner is a good boxer who somehow manages to come forward and keep the fight at range at the exact same time. His height helps him, and he usually towers over opponents because he's 6'3", but Jamie Mullarkey is a solid 6 foot, and the reach difference is minimal. So even though he's known for his striking, he is coming off 2 submission wins in a row, which shows just how well-rounded he actually is. His takedown defense is 78%, and he may honestly need that in this matchup. Jamie Mullarkey reinvented himself in 2021 as a striker. He's coming off 2 beautiful knockouts in a row. He's proven he has power, but I would not say that he's great anywhere. But he is solid everywhere, and he puts things together well. If you look at his losses, he had a decent outing against Brad Riddell, who we now know is very good. He has that loss to Volkanovski in 2016 and has a nice body of work under him. He's primarily a grappler. He has had solid takedowns and pressure on top. His ground and pound setups and transitions, he creates scrambles where then he looks for a submission. He's a grappler at heart. He's had success in the grappling. He has found success recently with the striking. So I'm curious to see if he just chooses one way or another, if he becomes a striker, or if he has added striking to his arsenal and isn't replacing it. And this is an interesting fight because Jamie Mullarkey has been successful as of late with that striking, but Jalin Turner is definitely the better striker. So common sense would say that if Jamie should go back to his roots, grapple his way to a win as he has in the past. Matt Frivola was able to take down Jalin Turner 4 times, so I would assume that Jamie Mullarkey could do more of the same. But if you look at Jamie's loss to Brad Riddell, he took him down 3 times and still lost the decision. He took down Faraz Ziam 5 times and lost that decision as well. So it's not a guarantee that if Jamie Mullarkey takes you down, he will win. Jalin Turner, on the other hand, has never won a decision. So logic would say he needs to finish or things will not go his way. But I'm actually going to go with Jalin here because I think his volume and accuracy will make up for any takedowns that Mullarkey gets. And I think he can ride this out and get his first decision win. We don't have round lines yet, but if this is a 1.5 round line, because both of these guys have been knocking people out as of late or finishing people as of late, I'm definitely going to hit the over 1.5. I don't know what the round line is. They haven't dropped it yet, but as soon as that's dropped, if it's a 1.5, I'm definitely going the over. And that takes us to Marina Rodriguez versus Xiaonan. Marina Rodriguez is the real deal. She's a very good boxer with solid speed and power. If you want to see her power, just go back and watch that one-punch knockout over Amanda Ribas. If you want to go see her improve takedown defense, go watch her fight against Mackenzie Dern, where she defended 7 out of 8 takedowns. But prior to that, she does have losses to Carla Esparza and Cynthia Calvillo, where she was taken down and controlled for 3 full rounds. But Marina Rodriguez is a complete fighter who can grind you out, knock you out, or submit you. Xiaonan is a very good boxer with well-timed strikes. She has very clean technique, but does not shy away from a dirty fight, and she is willing to bang. Outside of her loss to Carla Esparza, where she was taken down and stopped, she has had a dominant run in the UFC with wins over Claudia Gadelha, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and Angela Hill. For the most part, she keeps fights standing and outstrikes her way to a decision. But we did see her get 5 of her own takedowns against Carolina about 2 years ago. This is actually a pretty tough pick because right now, Marina is listed as the 3-1 favorite, which I think is crazy. The recency bias on both sides of this are way too heavy. Marina looked amazing in her last fight, but she pieced apart a miserable striker in Mackenzie Dern. And it's easy to say that Jan looked terrible in her last fight, but she fought Carla Esparza, who hasn't lost a fight since 2018. So listen, Marina is the pick here because we've only seen Jan execute a wrestle-heavy game plan one time. And I think Marina is faster and a more powerful striker. But Jan is stupid live in this, and I will likely place a plus 3.5 bet on her. So if you don't know what that means, I'm basically going to be buying a round on the judges' scorecard for Xiaonan. So if this ends up being a 29-28 loss, so Marina wins, Jan loses, but I bought a round, I win that fight, or I win the bet at least. The bookie pays me. So all I would need to do is have Jan win one single round. And right now, as live as she is, with the odds sitting at 3-1 against her, I should get good money on that. I should probably get, if she's a plus 300 underdog, you buy a round, you get it for like plus 150, which honestly, I think she could absolutely win a round, and that's plus money. So that's what I'll be grabbing. You'll only get that if you go to WeWantPicks.com/bets. We have 5 partners. BetOnline is the only partner that offers those buy a round type bets. So jump in, make a deposit, let me know, and I'll send you $50 as a thank you. And that brings us to Tim Elliott versus Tagir Ulanbekov. Tim Elliott is the definition of grit. He's constantly coming forward, and he makes every single fight dirty. He puts on a ton of pressure and has a ton of volume. He will stay in your face the entire time. Even if he's on the wrong side of the exchanges, he will stay in your face. His striking is not technical, but it can be effective for him because of his forward movement. His best asset is definitely his grappling. He moves really well on the ground and has submissions from everywhere. Even though he's so talented on the ground, he will make fight-losing decisions. He'll move from a dominant position to throw up a Hail Mary submission that isn't needed, and then he'll end up on bottom. Tagir Ulanbekov is a dominant come-forward wrestler with just okay striking, but that's really there just to set up his wrestling. He does have a nice jab, and then right behind that jab is a takedown attempt. Both of his UFC wins were very grappling heavy, with 4 takedowns against Nascimento and 5 against Bruno Silva. This entire card is loaded with heavy favorites, and I think a lot of those lines are off. This is another one. Listen, I totally understand why Ulanbekov is the favorite, but 3-1 does seem a little far for me because he hasn't fought anywhere near the level of competition that Tim Elliott has. And yes, he's 2-0 in the UFC, but he was taken down 4 times by Bruno Silva and completely outstruck by Nascimento. So we've seen him get taken down. We've seen him on the wrong end of striking. So no way do I think he's a lock to win this fight. I do have him winning, and that's because styles make fights, and I could see Tim almost accepting the wrestling. I could see Tim almost accepting the fact, yeah, I'm going to get taken down, work his jiu-jitsu, and not be successful with it. But if Tim decides to push the pace forward and dominate with his own wrestling, he may be able to do that. I just told you Bruno Silva took down Tagir 4 times, and Bruno I don't think is as good of a wrestler and doesn't have that same jiu-jitsu. Tim Elliott, if he can come forward and he can get those takedowns and he can use his jiu-jitsu, all of a sudden this is a much closer fight than 3-1. So Tagir is the pick. But if I were the odds maker, I would say Tagir is like a minus 150 favorite, a minus 120, not a minus 300 favorite. Tim Elliott has experience for days. And yes, Tagir's the real deal. These dominant wrestlers are really making something happen. But Tim Elliott is no bum on the ground. We have Dustin Jacoby taking on Michał Oleksiejczuk. 2 awesome strikers. And we've broken down Dustin Jacoby many times before, and I absolutely love this guy. He is a high-level kickboxer who will absolutely light up your legs. He will chop down that tree early and then work up to your head for a stoppage. He's very technically sound with good power and good volume. Taking him down may be the obvious path to victory, but Darren Stewart may disagree. He took Dustin down twice and was still knocked out. Michał Oleksiejczuk is also a very good striker with fast hands and a ton of pressure. He has power, but not a ton. Where he really separates himself from the pack is with his speed because he is incredibly fast. He's dangerous on his feet, but he does have holes in the grappling. This is another interesting fight, but I do agree with the odds here. Dustin is and should be a good size favorite here. Dustin's the more experienced striker, the more experienced MMA fighter. I think he's more technically sound, and I think the leg kicks will be the difference here. I do expect Michał to have a clear speed advantage, but Dustin should take that away with the leg kicks, and then he will come to the head to potentially stop Michał, or at least take a one-sided decision. So pretty confident here in Dustin Jacoby. That takes us to Marina Moroz versus Mariya Agapova. Marina Moroz is a striker with tons of volume, and she mixes up her strikes really well. She has nice movement on her feet, and she avoids the pocket. If she does end up in the pocket, she can be a bit hittable, which is a problem, but she's coming off a really nice win over Mayra Brena Silver, where she added some grappling and was able to get takedowns, 2 takedowns, and have almost 5 minutes of control time. Mariya Agapova has a fun, come-forward striking style with high volume and high pressure, throwing caution to the wind at times. Once she settles in and stops chasing a first-round knockout, she has solid boxing with clean combinations and possesses actual power. She has a pretty good ground game, but just okay takedowns. And this should be a fun striking matchup between 2 women with a ton of volume and pretty good power. Both of them have positive striking differentials, with Agapova having the slight edge in volume and ratio. The biggest gap between them is actually in the wrestling, with Agapova having the much higher takedown accuracy and neither one of them having an even 50% takedown defense. They're both strikers, but this may come down to the grappling. I've said that a lot this card, but these odds are wide. I get why Agapova is the favorite. She's been busier. Marina Moroz hasn't fought in a year, but 2-1 does seem high to me, and I'm actually going to go with the underdog here. I like Marina Moroz's movement and the recent addition of offensive takedowns here. She will need to avoid the pocket, which she should be able to do. But the biggest question here is this fight going to happen? Because Marina Moroz has pulled out of matchups against Araujo, Santos, Fiorot, and Montana De La Rosa. And who knows if she's going to show up. She's been pulling out of fights like crazy. She hasn't fought in a year. But again, if this fight happens, I actually like her to stay on the outside, use her more technical striking, use her volume, and get it done. So I like Marina Moroz if this fight ends up happening. And that takes us to Jessica Eye versus Manon Fiorot. Jessica Eye is an OG in the women's division and has been a pro since 2010. She's very tough with solid striking. She's an old school take one to give one striker, but she doesn't do well when she is bullied. She likes to do the bullying. If you come in her and you pressure her forward, she could have some issues with that. She's an okay grappler, and she was able to take down Jennifer Maia twice in their fight this past summer. Manon Fiorot is a nasty striker with killer instinct and very real finishing power. She has a lot of experience, even with her short record. Even when she gets taken down, she has the skills and the IQ to work back up immediately. She likes to fight at range and pick her shots, but she picks her shots often. She has one of the most impressive striking differentials I have ever seen. For every significant strike she lands, she has hit less than 3 times. But she isn't just a striker. She has takedowns in every single one of her UFC fights, including 2 against Mayra Bueno Silva. And don't let Jessica Eye's record fool you. She's only 1-4 in her last 5, but those losses were to Jennifer Maia, Joanne Calderwood, Cynthia Calvillo, and Valentina Shevchenko, who are all currently or were previously ranked inside the top 10. Jessica has no problem slugging it out and has an absolute beast of a chin on her. I do think Manon Fiorot wins. She has insane power, fantastic footwork, and should be able to outstrike Jessica for 3 full rounds. But Jessica is a vet. She could pull something off, even though that is unlikely. Manon Fiorot is a big-time favorite here. She's probably a solid parlay piece. And if we go back to some of the fights I broke down earlier, we can pair a few of these up and get ourselves some solid positive money. And that takes us to the main card opener. We have Sergey Spivak versus Greg Hardy. Sergey Spivak is a heavyweight grappler who is a much better hammer than a nail. If he's pushing the pace and he's making things happen, he does well. But if you start giving him trouble, I don't want to say he folds under the pressure, but all of a sudden he starts to fall apart. He has a great ground and pound game with solid takedowns. He has an okay submission game and is a capable striker. He doesn't have knockout power, but he does have a decent jab and solid volume. Greg Hardy has had a rocky road in the UFC. He came in and surprised a lot of people with some early wins, but when the level of competition improved, he did not. He's an incredibly athletic guy with amazing power in his hands, but he doesn't have much in the way of grappling. He is so strong and so athletic, though, that he has somehow managed an 80% takedown defense. He is coming off that loss to Tai Tuivasa, but he had Tai absolutely rocked early in that fight, which is something that Derek Lewis couldn't do. And if that exact same punch lands on Spivak, it will definitely put him out cold. And this is a pretty cut and dry breakdown. Spivak will lose a striking match and dominate a grappling match. He needs to lean on his wrestling early and get it to the ground as quickly as possible. If we didn't just watch Spivak have trouble with Oleksiejczuk Oleinik, I would be 100% sure that he wins this fight. But he did have some trouble with Oleksiejczuk, and Oleksiejczuk did have some success on the feet. I can only imagine if Oleksiejczuk is having success on his feet, what Greg Hardy will do on his feet against Spivak. The only thing I can do right now, though, is I can chalk Spivak's sort of unimpressive performance against Oleksiejczuk Oleinik to the fact that he was afraid to go to the ground with Oleksiejczuk. That will not be the case here. He wants to get this to the ground, so I have to assume that he is going to shoot and shoot often like he did when he fought Tai Tuivasa and he beat him back in 2019. So Spivak is the pick, but he needs to start diving at legs immediately after the glove touch. I would not bet this fight because heavyweights do what heavyweights do. Then we got Kevin Holland at a new weight class. He is down at 170, and he's taking on Alex Oliveira. Kevin Holland is an accurate and powerful striker who has a miserable takedown defense. Terrible takedown defense. But when it gets to the ground, he's actually a pretty solid grappler. Other than his wrestling, Kevin Holland is a killer. He's a sniper on his feet, and he has great accuracy and solid range control. He can also grapple really well and be a problem on the ground with his length. He had a fast rise to the top with knockout wins over Joaquin Buckley and Jacare Souza, but quickly hit that losing skid when he was matched up against guys that figured out all you got to do is take him down. Alex Oliveira is incredibly athletic with good boxing, great kicks, solid submissions, and good takedown defense. He is the complete package, but his willingness to get out there and have fun has been his downfall. He will strike when he should grapple. He'll get into a brawl when he should be point fighting, but he's dangerous absolutely everywhere. Alex Oliveira is probably the better fighter. He's more technical. He has more experience. He has more ways to win, but if he does tend to get sucked into wars, and you cannot always count on him to do what he needs to do to win that fight. And I'm really looking forward to this fight. I've been pretty hard on Kevin Holland in the past because his takedown defense is just so awful. It was laughable. But he seems to really be taking things seriously and turning a corner. He just competed in a grappling match in December. He spent time with a lot of really good wrestlers since his last 2 fights. And he's dropped a weight class. And if you add all of that dedication to his power, to his accuracy, and the grappling that he already had, you actually end up with a pretty complete package. And this will be a big test for Kevin, but I do think he passes it. I think Alex's leg kicks will be dangerous, but so will Kevin's hands. Alex Oliveira has only gotten 2 takedowns in his last 5 fights. So I am expecting him to stay on his feet, and we can finally see Kevin Holland settle into a rhythm and just enjoy letting his hands fly. So I think Kevin Holland gets it done in what might be fight of the night. And speaking of fight of the night, there's a few fights on this card that will qualify, and this is absolutely one of them. We have Edson Barboza taking on Bryce Mitchell. Edson Barboza is a great striker with amazing movement. He has fought every single person in the division and is a walking highlight reel of knockouts and submissions. He's unbelievably fast and insanely technical. He is coming off that TKO loss to Giga, but before that, he had that incredible zombie knockout over Shane Burgos. Barboza doesn't initiate many takedowns, but he is very good on the ground and has sneaky submissions. Bryce Mitchell hasn't fought in a year, but he is back to cement the fact that Arkansas has one of the great American wrestling programs, and they are a wrestling powerhouse. And I am absolutely being sarcastic because, of course, everyone knows that when you talk about American wrestling at an amateur level, Jersey and Pennsylvania dominate and reign supreme. Arkansas is definitely somewhere at the bottom of that list. But that hasn't stopped Arkansas's own Bryce Mitchell from being an absolute grappling beast. He averages over 3 takedowns per fight, and he had 7 in his fight against Andre Fili alone. His striking is awkward, but he doesn't even pretend that he wants to strike. He keeps his hands pretty low. He's right leg forward, and it's not because he's a southpaw and has a ton of power in his left hand. He's right leg forward because he's going to shoot, and that's the leg he wants to lead with. So he just starts diving at legs, and he starts working from there. If he gets you to the ground, which is almost a guarantee, he doesn't even really strike from there. He works for submission. He keeps control, and he's had some of the most incredible grappling scrambles that you will ever see. Bryce Mitchell has been getting tougher and tougher competition as he moves up the ranks. And this fight against Edson is definitely the next step because Edson can win on his feet. Edson can win on the ground. And where Bryce really only has one single path to victory, and that's get takedowns and ride it out from there. But with Edson's experience, distance control, and a 78% takedown defense over 26 fights, it's a pretty tall order taking him down. Even Khabib only went 4 of 13 with takedowns when he fought Barboza. I really don't know what to do here because Edson is the better fighter almost anywhere. But the one thing that Bryce does well, he does really well and probably well enough to win a decision. So I'm going to pick Bryce here. I don't love the pick. The very second that this fight starts, I will be rooting for Edson Barboza. But the guy is literally just going to dive at legs non-stop, and he'll probably get takedowns and ride it out, similar to how Khabib beat Edson Barboza just a few years ago. Then we have the rescheduled Rafael Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. This was supposed to happen a few weeks ago, but Rafael Fiziev had visa issues, so they just made it the co-main event of UFC 272. And this is 5 rounds. It is not a title fight. It is not a main event, but it is 5 rounds. Rafael dos Anjos is the former lightweight champion of the world, and he missed his massive payday when he pulled out against Conor McGregor. He is absolutely one of the OGs in this weight class. He has fought everybody, and he is incredibly well-rounded. He's a grappler at heart, but he developed clean striking with some solid volume that will trick people into thinking he wants to strike with them before he goes back to his roots and starts working his grappling. It's easy to say that he's 2-4 in his last 6, but if you look at who he lost to Usman, Covington, Leon Edwards, and Michael Chiesa, and all of those were at 170 pounds. In that same time span, he beat Kevin Lee and Paul Felder. Rafael Fiziev is a phenomenal striker with a traditional Muay Thai style. He has incredible power and volume. He mixes his punches and kicks up really well, but what else would you expect from a high-level striker who just happens to be the Tiger Muay Thai striking coach? He just put away Brad Riddell, who's also a fantastic striker, but Brad was able to take Rafael down one time, which did lower his takedown defense from 100% to what you see here at 95%. His cardio seemed to hold up in the Riddell fight, but we did see it fade big time when he fought Bobby Green, and he just gave up the entire third round. Before everyone writes off RDA, Rafael dos Anjos, in this fight, I want to point out 2 things. One, I want to remind you that this is 5 rounds, and Fiziev has had cardio issues in 3-round fights, so I don't think he's really going to be able to go 5 and stay fresh that whole time. And 2, if we go all the way back to 2016, the only people who beat RDA were able to take him down. He doesn't have a single loss in 6 years where he wasn't taken down, and has not been finished in that time span either. I say all of this because if RDA wasn't plagued with injuries and wasn't starting to age out, I think he would be the easy pick here. Fiziev has questionable cardio. He'll definitely be smaller, and he's not going to initiate any takedowns against RDA, who just happens to be incredibly durable. The problem is that RDA hasn't fought in over a year. He's been dealing with one injury after another, and Fiziev seems to have incredible takedown defense. My heart and brain are completely split on this. My brain is saying I need to go with Fiziev, but my heart is saying, my gut is saying that RDA is going to win. I've got to follow the brain. I've got to go with Fiziev, but I'm thinking over on rounds for sure. I might do a plus 5.5 where I mentioned earlier a plus 3.5 bet where you buy 1 round on the judges scorecard. Plus 5.5, you're buying 5.5 points on the judges scorecard. It's not quite 2 rounds. It's not 1 round. If RDA can get 2 rounds or get 1 round from all 3 judges and then get another round from 2 judges, then all of a sudden the bet hits. So I may grab that bet here. I just wish Rafael dos Anjos, I knew he was healthy. I wish he was a little more active. He's a little older, but the reality is he's fantastic. He has good hands. He's got good grappling. And like I just said, the only people that have beat him in 6 years had to take him down to do it. And obviously, Rafael Fiziev will be the best striker he's fought in an incredibly long time. But it's really going to come down to, is his takedown defense going to hold up? So my brain says yes. My gut says RDA surprises everybody. But got to go with the brain here. Rafael Fiziev is the pick. And that takes us to the main event of the evening, the grudge match of the century. We've got a Tito Chuck situation, but in 2020 instead of 2002. And I am absolutely here for it. It's not often we get a 5-round, 9-title fight main event, but I'm very excited for this. I'm glad the UFC put it together, and I'm glad they made it a pay-per-view main event. Before I break down each fighter, I just want to give you a quick scoop. For those of you who don't know, I've managed fighters for a very long time, in some capacity for 15 years. During that time, I've met a lot of people at a lot of gyms. I reached out to a friend of mine at American Top Team that's had some experience with both of these men, and I said, hey, my exact quote was, did Kobe run through Masvidal in training? And the response back was, for the most part, yeah, but George would touch him up on the feet and he would throw a fit. So that's not exactly shocking news, but it is bringing some clarity as to what happened when they actually sparred. So it sounds like Kobe would just take George down, control him, do what he needed to do from there. But when they were standing, George would touch him up and Kobe would get very, very frustrated. And Colby Covington is a great wrestler who has shown an incredible amount of heart and grit. He's a high-pace, high-volume guy that comes forward with punches in bunches, and he doesn't let you settle into a rhythm. His striking numbers are incredible in both wins and losses. In his fight against Robbie Lawler, he landed 179 strikes and had 10 takedowns. In his fight against Rafael dos Anjos before that, he had 100 strikes and 3 takedowns to win the interim title. He is constantly coming forward and constantly mixing in takedowns with his strikes, which makes him a really tough matchup for a lot of people. George Masvidal, or Jorge Masvidal, is incredibly well-rounded. He's a fantastic striker who has his own wrestling game and a very good ground game. He's known as a no-nonsense guy. He shot to stardom after he just punched Leon Edwards in the mouth backstage after Leon was talking some shit. He also is a very good striker, but he made a big life change after the Wonder Boy loss in 2017, and he came back in 2019 with a new sense of purpose, comfort, and very real power in his hands. And if you go back and watch George Masvidal before 2019, he was a journeyman. He was skilled, but he was tough, and he was losing the big fights, winning the other ones. Then he took 2 years off, changed his training, made life changes. All of a sudden came back in 2019, strung together some awesome wins, and really shot to stardom after that. And good for him. The guy started as a bare-knuckle brawler, and now he's out here. He's the UFC's biggest pay-per-view draw right now, and I totally get it. Ton of fun to watch. Awesome personality. The guy's fantastic. He's dangerous on his feet. He can make something happen on the ground. I don't necessarily see him submitting people off his back, but he's so talented. He's not getting submitted anytime soon, and he could potentially snatch something up in a scramble. Listen, the pick here is definitely Kobe, because I think his nonstop wrestling will be a problem for George, and I think this looks somewhat similar to Masvidal versus Usman 1, where Masvidal had success anytime he was able to let his hands go, and then quickly that distance was cut off, and he wasn't able to do anything with his hands, and he was just controlled. Chael Sonnen said it best when he praised Masvidal for taking this fight, knowing full well that 3 losses in a row was going to hurt his brand. I love it. I'm here for it. I just hope it's an absolute war. I'm expecting Kobe to win with the wrestling. Very straightforward game plan for him. But Masvidal is Masvidal, and we've seen him pull off bigger upsets, like when he knocked out Ben Askren to set the speed record in the UFC for knockouts. So guys, that's the breakdown. We're going to do a full detailed breakdown with multiple perspectives and fantasy information on Tuesday night. Every Tuesday before the fights, we go live at 8:30 p.m. Central, and we break down the fights with multiple perspectives, picks, bets, and fantasy information. And don't forget to claim your $50 free. Go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our 5 partners. Make a deposit. Let me know after you do, and I send you $50 as a thank you. It's that easy. Let me know in the comments who you think wins this main event.